Hello and welcome to another Britain's Best B Roads. I haven't posted a video in ages, sorry about that. There hasn't really been anything particularly interesting to update you with, although that has changed. There's lots of things to share with you, which I will, so more videos coming up soon. The reason that I wanted to make this video was because this morning I read an article that really made me think, and it was this one. Why it's the end of the road for petrol stations, by the BBC, their chief environmental correspondent, I don't know the guy, but when I read the article it felt to me like it was scaremongering. It felt sensationalist and it didn't feel right. So I thought I would actually work out, very roughly, what I think is going to happen to the number of cars on the road that require petrol, whether they be internal combustion engine cars or ICE cars, whether they be petrol hybrid cars or PHEV cars, versus cars that only need electricity, so battery electric vehicles, BEVs. What's the mix of cars on the road going to look like between these types of cars? So that's what I did. And I'll share with you very quickly my workings on this. So currently at the end of 2020, there were 36.9 million vehicles, cars, motorbikes, light goods vehicles that require petrol. So whether they be hybrids, PHEVs or ICE cars, and less than 200,000 or slightly more than 200,000 battery electric vehicle cars, and a total number of cars on the road of around 37 million cars. Now, the growth rate of battery electric vehicles is the key thing here in my calculations. So between 2019 and 2020, the number of battery electric vehicles grew by 66% year on year, which sounds like a big number, but it's coming off a low base. The actual number of cars was only around 90,000. So in 2020 there were 175,000 cars sold that were either hybrids or battery electric vehicles, but of that about 90,000 of them were purely battery electric vehicles. So it's not a big number, absolutely, even though in percentage terms it sounds quite big. I think in 2021 the absolute number of BEV cars sold will be pretty much the same as it was in 2020, mainly because of supply chain problems that we have in relation to coronavirus. By 2022 I think we'll be back again to around 60% year-on-year growth, and then that percentage growth will tail down, but in absolute numbers it will increase. So you can see here, this is what I think the annual sales of new cars, BEV cars, will be each year until we get to 2035. So the key thing here is in the UK, the government has said that by 2030 all new car sales, not used car sales, but new car sales, have to be electric vehicles, and that by the end of 2035 all new car sales have to be electric only vehicles. So there's a 5-year window between 2030 and 2035 where you can still buy a hybrid, but you couldn't buy a petrol or diesel only car. By 2030, no more petrol diesel cars that are only internal combustion engines. You can buy hybrids for 5 years, but by 2035 it's electric only, BEV cars only. So what I've worked out in this calculation is, okay, you've got the growth rate of BEV only cars, you've got the growth rate of total cars in total, and then you've got scrappage as well. Now scrappage is quite volatile because in the past there have been government schemes to encourage scrappage, which have meant there's been an increase in the number of cars scrapped each year, but roughly you're talking around about the million cars scrapped a year. So in my calculation I've actually been a little bit more prudent than that. I've assumed that there's a 1% increase year on year of the cars scrapped. And then what I've assumed is that you don't get any BEV cars scrapped until 2031. And then because by that time BEV cars will be at least 10 years old. You know, we have these BEV cars now in 2020. So by 2031 we should start to see probably some of these cars being scrapped. which is a whole new line of challenges and problems to try and solve, how we scrap the batteries within BEV cars. And then I've assumed that whatever proportion of cars existed in the market 10 years previously, that's the proportion of cars that will be scrapped, and so on. And I think the scrap rate will get up to 1.5 million, and then it will stay there. And I've calculated this out to 2050. And what this shows is that by 2050 there will be 16.3 million cars that require petrol, whereas ICE or PHEV, on the road, versus the 36.9 that we have on the road just now. So that will be a 56% decrease in the number of petrol or diesel consuming cars on the road by 2050, which is actually more than I thought. It's quite a bit more than I thought in terms of the drop off. I thought there would still be more petrol and diesel cars on the road by 2050. What that does mean is that there is still going to be the need for petrol stations. So the fundamental premise of this guy's article that says there won't be petrol stations and they will disappear really, really quickly is just fundamentally wrong. There will be some locations, I think it will be geographically specific. So a lot of cities in the UK are imposing bans on petrol cars. It's electric cars only, or hybrid cars, but they have to go into electric mode in the cities. So I think what you will see is there will be a reduced demand for petrol stations as we know them just now round about these cities where they have the bans, because most people who live in those cities now are either not going to have a car, or they're going to have a BEV, they're going to have an electric only car. Probably. So you will, I think geographically specific, you will see petrol stations disappearing or having to reinvent themselves or be repurposed for something else. But generally speaking, there is still going to be a need for petrol stations. They may change, they might not have the number of pumps that they have just now. You may see more of them expanding to offer different things. A lot of them have already converted into convenience stores, but you'll see them converting into different things. But they're not going to disappear. So that fundamental premise in the article is wrong. We're still going to have petrol stations 30 years from now. They're not going to disappear overnight. And one of the parting comments that article leaves us with is a reference to how quickly horse and carts disappeared when the motor car came in, and that this is going to be the same revolution, electric vehicles taking over from combustion engine vehicles. Well, that's wrong as well, because we didn't go overnight from using horse and carts to suddenly having 30 million cars on the road. That revolution has taken the best part of 100 years, really. If you think of the figures for horses and carts, for cars, in 1923 in the UK, there were 383,000 cars registered on the road. By 1930, that had increased to 1 million. Which is not a lot, and that's over the space of 7 years, and it only added, just over 600,000 vehicles. By 1938, another 8 years, there was only another 1 million cars on the road, 2 million, and then by 1950, 4 million. So that growth rate is not particularly fast, either in absolute numbers or in percentage terms. This was not an overnight, revolution. So it's a completely different situation, referencing horse and carts and how internal combustion engine cars took over from them, and the same is going to happen with electric cars. A, no, they didn't take over from overnight, and B, it's a completely different situation from the one we're in now. So, in short, I think my initial reaction when I read that article was that this is scaremongering and sensationalist, and it's factually inaccurate. I think having done what only took me 5-10 minutes to pull together all that data, has shown that my initial reaction to that article was correct and well founded. So anyway, I hope that's reassured you. Petrol stations, I think, are going to be around for a long time to come, so we don't need to worry about where we're going to get our petrol from anytime soon. Thanks for watching, and more videos to come shortly. Bye bye.